Imagine for a moment the final curtain falls. Your life on earth has concluded. You stand in a place beyond time, beyond space, before the source of all light and all judgment. What is the very first word you expect to hear from Jesus? Perhaps you imagine a gentle welcome, or maybe the longed-for phrase, well done. Some might fear a question, a stern why. We have all contemplated this moment, filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. But what if the first word is none of these? What if it is something so utterly unexpected, so simple yet so profound that it shatters our preconceptions of divine justice and mercy? What if this single word holds the key to understanding the entire purpose of our existence? This isn't a theological guess or a philosophical theory. It is a revelation witnessed in a divine vision by one of the most remarkable mystics of the modern era, Saint Gemma Galgani. She was given a glimpse into this sacred moment, a moment every soul will one day face. And she heard it, the very first word spoken by Christ to a soul at its judgment. And I promise you, it is not what you think. Stay with me, because what you are about to discover could change not only how you view the afterlife, but how you choose to live every single day from this moment forward. To understand the weight of this revelation, we must first understand the vessel through which it came. Who was this young woman, Gemma Galgani, chosen to receive such an intimate look into the mechanics of eternity? Born in a small Italian town in 1878, Gemma's life was, from the outside, a tapestry of sorrow. She lost her mother at a young age, followed by her father, and was left an orphan, responsible for her younger siblings in a state of deep poverty. Her body was a constant battlefield. She suffered from debilitating illnesses, including spinal tuberculosis, which left her paralyzed for a time, and a host of other painful afflictions that doctors were powerless to cure. To the world, she was a tragic figure, a young woman destined for a short and painful life. But in the hidden world of the spirit, Gemma was a giant. Her suffering was not a curse, but a currency of love. She offered every pain, every tear, every moment of agony to God, uniting her own suffering with the passion of Christ. This profound spiritual union did not go unnoticed in heaven. Gemma began to experience extraordinary mystical phenomenon. She would fall into ecstasies, long periods where she was completely absorbed in prayer, her face transfigured with a heavenly light, conversing with Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and her guardian angel as if they were standing right there in the room. Her life became a bridge between our world and the next. She was a soul living in two realities at once: the harsh, painful reality of her physical existence, and the vibrant, intensely real spiritual world that was her true home. It was in this state, balanced between heaven and earth, that she was granted visions that unveiled divine secrets. She saw the horrifying reality of sin, the torment of souls in purgatory, and the indescribable glory of paradise. She wasn't just seeing these things, she was participating in them. She felt the flames of purification for the souls she prayed for. She experienced the agony of Christ's wounds in her own body, becoming one of the first authenticated stigmatistics of the 20th century. The wounds of the nails, the spear, and the crown of thorns would appear on her body, bleeding profusely, a visible sign of her intimate sharing in Christ's redemptive suffering. These were not things she sought. In her humility, she was often frightened and embarrassed by them, trying to hide them from those around her. But they were a testament to the authenticity of her connection to the divine. God was using this simple, suffering soul as a clear channel, a pure messenger, to remind the world of the eternal truths it was so quickly forgetting. So when Gemma speaks of judgment, she is not speaking from theory. She is speaking as an eyewitness. She was permitted to see what awaits us all, not to frighten us, but to awaken us. to shake us from our spiritual slumber and remind us of the staggering importance of every choice we make, every thought we entertain, and every love we nurture. Her entire life was a preparation for understanding the very moment we will all face. But how did these visions actually work? Were they like vivid dreams that fade upon waking? Or were they something far more real, more intense, and more terrifyingly clear? Understanding the nature of her mystical sight is absolutely crucial before we can even begin to grasp the earth-shattering weight of the single word she heard at the moment of judgment. And that is exactly where we are going next. Gemma's visions were not gentle daydreams. They were all-consuming, high-definition experiences that overwhelmed her physical senses. When she was in ecstasy, the world around her faded away. The sounds of the house, the feeling of the chair beneath her, the very air she breathed, all became secondary to the spiritual reality that had opened up before her. It was, by her own account, more real than the world we see with our eyes. She described a clarity and a depth of understanding that is impossible in our normal state. In these moments, she wasn't just an observer, she was a participant. She felt the sorrow of the Blessed Mother, the burning love of the Sacred Heart, and the palpable evil of the demonic forces she was called to battle through her prayers and sacrifices. Guiding her through these often terrifying landscapes was her constant companion, her guardian angel. This celestial being was her teacher, her protector, and her confidant. He would explain the meaning of what she saw, prepare her for spiritual trials, and even physically protect her from demonic attacks, which were a frequent and violent part of her life. It was this angel who often acted as her guide, leading her in spirit to witness moments that transcend human comprehension. And one of those moments was the particular judgment of a soul. Imagine being gently lifted from your own reality. The familiar sights and sounds of your life dissolve, not into darkness, but into an overwhelming light. This is how Gemma described the beginning of the vision. She was taken to a place that is not a place, a moment that is outside of time. There, before her, was a soul that had just passed from its earthly life. In that instant, the soul undergoes what mystics call the illumination of conscience. It sees its entire life not as a chronological movie, but all at once in a single blinding flash. Every thought, every word, every action, and every omission. Nothing is hidden. The motivations behind every good deed and the secret pride lurking within every act of charity are laid bare. The soul sees itself not as it thought it was, not as others saw it, but exactly as God sees it. It understands with perfect and painful clarity the ripple effect of its choices, the good it did and the good it failed to do. There are no excuses here, no rationalizations. There is only the pure, unvarnished truth of a life lived, seen in the brilliant light of its Creator. It is a moment of absolute silence and absolute truth. The soul is completely alone with its own reality, standing before the gentle but piercing gaze of Jesus. All the noise of the world, all the distractions, all the self-deception we build around ourselves is gone. It is the ultimate moment of self-awareness, where the mask finally comes off, and the soul sees its own beauty and its own brokenness with divine clarity. This is the setting, the stage upon which the first word is spoken. The soul has seen itself. It understands its own state perfectly. There is no need for a long list of accusations or praises. The soul already knows. It is in this profound, silent, and intensely personal moment of truth that Jesus speaks. And what Gemma was privileged to hear next is the key that unlocks the entire mystery of divine judgment. Are you prepared to hear it? Because this single word reframes everything we've been taught to fear about this moment. The moment has come. The soul stands bare, having seen the complete tapestry of its life in a flash of divine light. It has judged itself. It knows its state. And in the profound sacred silence that hangs in eternity, Jesus, the merciful judge, looks upon this soul he created and bled for, and he speaks. The first word Saint Gemma heard Jesus say to a judged soul is not "welcome." It is not "depart." It is not a statement of fact or a declaration of a verdict. It is a question. A single soul-piercing question filled with an eternity of love and sorrow. The word is again. Again? That's it. It sounds almost anticlimactic, doesn't it? It feels confusing, perhaps even strange. But within that one word, within that simple, heartbreaking question, lies the entire drama of a human life and the infinite patience of God. This is not the again of an impatient teacher scolding a slow student. It is the again of a heartbroken lover who has been spurned time and time again. Let's unpack this. The question again implies a history. It is a word that looks back over the entire relationship between that soul and its creator. Jesus is not just seeing the soul as it is in that final moment. He is seeing every moment he reached out to that soul during its life on earth. Every quiet nudge of conscience, every grace offered in a moment of temptation, every person sent into their life to guide them, every opportunity for forgiveness in the confessional, every mass, every prayer, every call to be better, to love more, to turn back to Him. He is saying, in essence, after all of that, after every time I knocked on the door of your heart, after every chance I gave you, after every cross I sent to purify you and every consolation I sent to encourage you, again? You come before me in this state again? You have chosen your own will over mine again? This single word transforms judgment from a cold, legalistic courtroom into a final, intimate, and deeply personal encounter. The evidence isn't a list of sins presented by a prosecutor. The evidence is the history of a love story, a story of God relentlessly pursuing a soul that may have spent a lifetime running away. The judgment is not an external sentence being passed down. It is the soul's own final, devastating, or glorious recognition of how it responded to that divine pursuit. The horror of this moment for a soul in a state of sin is not in hearing an angry God condemn them. The horror is in finally understanding the depth of the love they rejected. It is in seeing the face of perfect love look at them with sorrow, not rage, and ask why. Why, after so many invitations, did they refuse to come to the feast? This revelation from Saint Gemma is profound because it recenters the entire concept of judgment on love. It is not about accumulating points or avoiding demerits. It is about the relationship. It is about the heart. Our entire life is a response to God's constant, gentle, and sometimes painful invitation to love Him and be loved by Him. So the first word isn't a verdict, it is a mirror held up to the soul, reflecting back a lifetime of choices. But what happens next? How does a soul even respond to such a question that contains the weight of its entire existence? The answer to that reveals the terrible and beautiful power of our own free will, a power that persists right up to the very last second. And what Gemma saw next is a crucial warning for us all. Faced with this question again, the soul is at its final crossroad. There is nowhere left to run, no one left to blame. In this moment of absolute clarity, two paths diverge, and the soul, with its own free will still intact, must make its final, irrevocable choice. Saint Gemma's vision did not end with the question. She was shown the two possible responses, and they reveal the very essence of heaven and hell. The first response is that of the soul who, despite its failings and its sins, has maintained even a flicker of true humility and love. This soul, seeing the truth of its life and hearing the sorrow in Christ's voice, is utterly crushed, not by fear of punishment, but by the overwhelming realization of the love it has offended. Its response is not one of excuses, but of pure, unadulterated sorrow. This soul might cry out in spirit, "Yes, Lord, again. I am so sorry. I failed you. I was weak. I was proud. But I love you. Have mercy on me." In that single act of humble contrition, in that final turning back to God, the gates of mercy are flung wide open. This soul, recognizing its own unworthiness, but trusting in God's infinite love, chooses heaven. It may need purification, it may need to pass through the cleansing fires of purgatory to be made ready for the beatific vision, but its eternal destiny is secure. It has chosen love. But then Gemma witnessed the other response, the darker path. This is the response of the soul that has spent its life so deeply entrenched in pride and self-will that it cannot bear to admit its fault, even in the face of perfect truth and love. When this soul hears the question, "Again?" it does not respond with sorrow. It responds with rage, with defiance. This soul, seeing its own ugliness in the divine light, refuses to accept responsibility. It doubles down on the choices it made in life. In its pride, it effectively screams back at God, "Yes, again, I did it my way. I am my own God." It sees the perfect beauty and love of Christ not as an invitation, but as a reproach, an unbearable judgment on its own self-worship. In this final, terrible act of free will, the soul rejects God definitively. It cannot stand to be in the presence of a love that exposes its own selfishness. And so it casts itself away. Hell, in this vision, is not a place God sends people to. It is the place souls choose when they definitively and finally reject the love that is God. It is the eternal echo of their final, prideful choice. It is the ultimate self-imposed quarantine from the light and love they have come to hate. This is the terrifying power of our freedom. God will not force us to love Him. He will not drag us into heaven against our will. He stands as a heartbroken lover, asking, "Again?" holding out His hand until the very last moment. But the choice, ultimately, is ours. We are the architects of our own eternity, and every yes or no to His grace throughout our lives is practice for that final, definitive answer. This vision from Saint Gemma gives us a profound insight. Judgment is not so much about what we have done, but about who we have become. Have we become people capable of accepting love and admitting fault? Or have we become so hardened by pride that we would rather be miserable on our own terms than joyful in submission to a loving God? This powerful revelation naturally leads to a very practical question for us, right here, right now. If this is the reality of judgment, how do we prepare for it? How do we train our souls to give the right answer when that question is finally posed to us? Saint Gemma's life isn't just a source of mystical visions, it's a practical roadmap. And she left behind clear signs and practices that can help us prepare our hearts for that final crucial encounter. So, how do we prepare for a question that holds the weight of eternity? How do we ensure our soul's instinctive response is one of humble love, not prideful defiance? Saint Gemma Galgani's life offers us a powerful and practical blueprint. It's not about grand, impossible gestures, but about small, consistent acts of the heart that, over time, shape who we become. The first and most crucial practice is the cultivation of a personal relationship with Jesus. For Gemma, Jesus was not an abstract theological concept or a distant historical figure. He was the most real person in her life. She spoke to Him constantly, throughout her day, not just in formal prayer times, but in the midst of her chores, her suffering, and her moments of quiet. She shared her joys, her fears, her frustrations. She built a friendship. This is the absolute foundation.
When you stand before someone you know, someone you have spoken to every day, someone you have loved and trusted, your response to their sorrowful question, "Again?" will naturally come from a place of intimacy and shared history. You will feel the pain of hurting a friend, not the fear of angering a distant king. So, the first step is simple. Talk to him, now, in your own words. Tell him about your day. Ask for his help. Thank him. Make him a part of your daily reality. The second key practice Gemma exemplified was the embrace of redemptive suffering. Now this is a concept our modern world runs from. We are taught to avoid pain at all costs, to seek comfort and ease. Gemma, however, understood a profound spiritual secret, that suffering, when united with the suffering of Christ on the cross, becomes a powerful force for good. It becomes a prayer. She didn't just passively endure her excruciating illnesses, she actively offered them. With every pang of pain, she would say in her heart, "This is for you, Jesus, for the conversion of sinners, for the souls in purgatory." She transformed her pain from a meaningless burden into a currency of love. What does this mean for us? We all have sufferings. Physical pain, emotional heartache, professional setbacks, family struggles. We can either let them make us bitter and angry, or we can, like Gemma, offer them.
When you feel a headache coming on, when you are stuck in traffic, when you receive a difficult email, instead of reacting with frustration, try a simple, silent offering. Jesus, I offer this small annoyance to you for someone who needs your grace today. This simple shift in mindset does something incredible. It trains your soul to see everything, even the negative, through the lens of love and purpose. It erodes self-pity and builds spiritual strength. It prepares you to see God's hand even in the difficult parts of your story. The third practice is a deep devotion to the guardian angels. For Gemma, her angel was her best friend, her teacher, and her protector. She saw him, spoke with him, and relied on his guidance constantly. We have all been given this incredible gift, a celestial being whose entire mission is to guide us safely to heaven. Yet how many of us actively acknowledge and engage with our guardian angel? Start today. In the morning, say a simple prayer. My dear guardian angel, thank you for watching over me. Please protect me from evil, enlighten my mind, and guide my steps today. When you have a difficult decision to make, ask your angel for guidance. When you are feeling tempted or afraid, ask for his protection. By building this relationship, you are acknowledging that you are not alone in your spiritual journey. You are accepting the help that heaven is constantly trying to send you, making you more receptive to all of God's graces. These three practices, a personal relationship with Jesus, the offering of suffering, and devotion to your guardian angel, are not just pious suggestions. They are spiritual training. They are the daily exercises that prepare our souls for the final judgment. They soften a heart of stone into a heart of flesh, a heart that, when faced with the question, "Again?" will be ready to collapse in loving surrender rather than shatter in defiant pride. But there was one more element, a final, crucial key that Gemma revealed, which ties all of this together and protects the soul from the ultimate deception, and that is what we will explore next. The final key, the spiritual bedrock upon which all of Gemma's other practices were built, was her profound humility and her absolute reliance on the sacraments of the Church. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect for our modern mindset, which champions independence and self-reliance. But for Gemma, it was the ultimate safeguard. She understood that the spiritual path is fraught with peril, especially for a soul receiving extraordinary graces. The greatest danger is pride. The devil, as she experienced in her many terrifying encounters with him, is the master of illusion. He can imitate visions. He can whisper suggestions that sound holy, but are rooted in pride, leading a soul to believe it is special, that it is above others, or that it no longer needs the simple, humble means of grace that God provides for everyone else.
Gemma's protection against this was her unwavering obedience to her spiritual director and her profound love for the sacraments of confession and the Eucharist. She never trusted her own interpretation of her visions. She submitted everything, even the most sublime mystical experiences, to the judgment of her confessor, a priest appointed by the Church to guide her. She believed it was better to obey a priest on earth, even if he was mistaken, than to follow a vision that might be a trick of the enemy. This radical humility, this surrender of her own judgment, kept her grounded and safe. What does this teach us? It teaches us to be wary of a purely private spirituality, one that is disconnected from the wisdom and authority of the Church Christ founded. It's a call to seek wise counsel, to find a good confessor or spiritual guide, and to trust in the structures that God has given us for our own protection. It's a reminder that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. And then there was her love for the sacraments. For Gemma, the Holy Eucharist was not a symbol, it was Jesus himself. Her desire to receive Holy Communion was so intense that it was a source of physical pain when she was unable to. She called it the bread of angels, her only true medicine and strength. Likewise, the sacrament of confession was her lifeline. She went frequently, not because she was a great sinner, but because she was a great saint. She understood that even small sins, small attachments to pride and self-will, cloud the soul's vision and weaken its love for God. Confession was her way of constantly course-correcting. It was a regular act of humility, an admission that she needed God's mercy.
It was practice. Every time she knelt in the confessional and admitted her faults, she was training her soul to say, "I'm sorry," to God. She was rehearsing, in a small way, for that final moment when her entire life would be laid bare. She was strengthening the muscle of humility so that when she finally heard the question, "Again?" her soul's immediate, practiced response would be one of contrite love. This is the practical, powerful lesson for us. Do not neglect the sacraments. See the Eucharist as what it is, a direct, personal encounter with the living Christ. See confession not as a shameful obligation, but a liberating gift, a spiritual shower that cleanses the soul and strengthens it for the journey. These are not mere rituals. They are supernatural channels of grace, the very tools God has given us to prepare our hearts. By combining a personal, prayerful relationship with Jesus, offering our daily struggles, invoking our guardian angel, and grounding it all in the humble obedience and sacramental life of the Church, we build a fortress for our soul. We are actively preparing for that final, loving encounter. We are ensuring that when we stand before the Lord and hear His sorrowful question, our heart will be so accustomed to turning towards Him in love and humility that it will do so instinctively, securing our place with Him for all eternity. The vision of Saint Gemma isn't a threat, it's a gift. It is a roadmap home. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter. The revelation of Saint Gemma Galgani, this glimpse into the sacred mechanics of judgment, is not a story meant to terrify us into submission. It is a divine act of mercy. It is a secret whispered from heaven to earth to awaken our hearts before it is too late. The question, "Again?" is not the prelude to damnation, but the final, desperate plea of a love that never gives up. It is the sound of the Sacred Heart breaking, one last time, for a soul it yearns to save. Our entire life, from this moment forward, can be seen in a new light. It is a preparation. It is an answer being formulated, day by day, choice by choice, to that single ultimate question. Every time we choose humility over pride, forgiveness over resentment, prayer over distraction, we are training our soul. We are conditioning its spiritual reflexes, so that in that final, blinding moment of truth, its natural, instinctive response is to fall into the arms of mercy, not to flee from them in defiance. The saints are not distant, plaster figures. They are our older brothers and sisters who have run the race and now show us the way. Saint Gemma, through her suffering and her visions, pulls back the curtain just enough for us to see what truly matters. She shows us that the greatest tragedy is not to suffer,
but to waste our suffering. The greatest poverty is not to be without money, but to be without a friendship with God. And the greatest judgment is not a sentence handed down, but a love definitively refused. The choice is ours. The time is now. Translating insights into action, your practical guide in the next 24 hours. The sincere conversation. At some point today, find 5 minutes of absolute silence. Close your eyes and, instead of reciting a memorized prayer, speak to Jesus as Gemma spoke to him, as a friend. Begin with, "Jesus, it's me." Tell him about a real concern in your heart, a joy you felt, or a fault that embarrasses you. Don't ask for anything, just share, building the foundation for a friendship that transcends time. The first conscious offering. Pay attention to your day. The first time you feel a pang of annoyance, frustration, or pain, whether in traffic, from a rude word from someone, or a headache, stop. Instead of complaining, make a silent, instantaneous offering. Say in your heart, "Jesus, I accept this and offer it to you for the soul most in need of your mercy at this moment." You have just transformed a moment of negativity into an act of redemptive love. In the next 7 days. The guardian angel habit. Link a conversation with your guardian angel to a daily habit you already have. For example, every time you get in your car or before turning on your computer at work, pause for 10 seconds. Say, "My good angel, my guide and protector, enlighten my mind, govern my affections, direct my will so that I may never offend God. Protect me today." By the end of the week, this connection with your celestial protector will begin to become an instinct.
Again? Examination of conscience. Each night before sleeping, set aside 2 minutes. Instead of a generic list of sins, ask yourself, in what moments today might God have looked at me and thought, with sorrow, again? Was it in that moment of impatience? In that gossip? In that omission to do good? Identify one of these moments and simply ask God for forgiveness, promising to be more vigilant tomorrow. This trains your conscience for the reality of judgment. In the next 30 days, the commitment to reconciliation. Make a concrete plan to go to confession this month. Approach it not as an obligation, but as the great training in humility. Before going, pray to Saint Gemma, asking her to help you see your sins clearly, but also to feel God's immense mercy. This sacramental act is the most powerful practice to prepare your soul to respond with a contrite yes in the final moment. The friendship visit. Once this month, dedicate 15 minutes to visit Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament at a Catholic church. Don't bring a prayer book, don't bring your phone. Just sit in silence in His presence. Look at the tabernacle and let Him look at you. Speak to Him in your heart or simply rest in His presence. Strengthen the friendship that will be your only comfort on the day of judgment. The Journal of Offered Sufferings. Keep a small notebook and, for 30 days, jot down a small sacrifice or suffering you offered each day. It could be something as simple as, "I offered the desire to complain about the weather," or "I offered my back pain for the conversion of a family member." At the end of the month, read your notes. You will see a tangible record of how you transformed suffering into love, exactly as Saint Gemma taught us. Eternity will ask you a question. Your entire life is the answer. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming revelations. Comment on what you thought of this video and what city you are watching us from. Share with someone who needs to hear this message.